Especially living in New York, people say, "Oh, you're from Idaho, like potatoes," and that's it, and that's all that they can say. And so I'm really excited to play a role in making Idaho about something more than that. Making Idaho is like a place where people come from that have big success and that are committed to what all Idahoans I know are committed to, which is maintaining the right for people to build the kinds of communities and families that work for them.
Emily Drabinski is proud to be an Idahoan, as you could hear, and just as proud to be the next president of the American Library Association. But who are they? Well, the ALA has been around since 1876, and they help advocate for American libraries at the federal level. They call themselves the foremost national organization providing resources to inspire library and information professionals to transform their communities through essential programs and services. Well, Idaho State Librarian also has to be a graduate of a library school accredited by the ALA. They even have a motto: the best reading for the largest number at the least cost. Pretty good one. Well, Emily, the interim chief librarian at City University of New York, just became the president-elect of the National Association on Wednesday, just 2 days ago. Emily grew up in Boise, but left at the age of 18 to attend Columbia University with the intent of becoming a writer. And like a lot of those who end up in New York with big dreams in the Big Apple, it helps to have a backup. So in search of a steady paycheck, Emily got her library degree and believed she would just work at the library, helping people find books and stuff. Well, now she's going to be doing a lot more than that. Emily told us today, as president, she wants to provide people the tools they need to organize locally, teach them how to push for the kinds of public policies they need to run their local libraries, which seemed like a pretty good jumping off point to get into local libraries and this year's legislative session here in Idaho. Accusations of libraries peddling pornography and obscene materials to kids, lawmakers trying to remove their exempt status from having any such items on their shelves, and ultimately cutting the Idaho Commission for Libraries budget by $3.8 million. So what does the Idaho-raised president-elect of the American Library Association think about what has been happening with libraries in Idaho?
Even though I've been gone from Idaho since '93, I very much feel like an Idahoan at the root, and so try to keep up on the policy and what's going on. And it seems like what's happening in the legislative sort of arena is really quite scary.
For example, they were trying to remove libraries from exemption when it comes to well, I guess they just call it pornography. And there was a big pushback from librarians saying, look, this isn't on us. Mm-hmm. This is about parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like concerted political efforts to sort of push this sort of story about what libraries do, which seems very, it's anathema to what libraries actually do, that we are sort of pushing pornographic materials on our patrons, and it's really not what we do at all. Like all our librarians, especially public librarians and school librarians, they're members of the community. They are professionally trained to select, acquire, and maintain collections that meet the needs of their communities. That's just what we do as a job. There's no big library agenda,
So that bill didn't pass eventually. So that kind of went away. But
like the bill didn't pass, but when you are just trying to do your job in your community, getting paid in many cases barely a living wage to do that kind of work, and you're really committed to things like helping kids read, when you have to deal with that kind of state attack, it has long-lasting implications for your experiences at work. It would make me feel like I was not safe in that environment, that I could not be supported in the work that I did for the families and community members that I serve.
They cut $3.5 million federal dollars from Library Commission here in Idaho.
I mean, I can't think of a more short-sighted legislative action. Yeah.
Why not?
I think you look at libraries as I think of them as one of the last social safety nets for our communities that serve everybody. Everybody is welcome in the library. We work very hard to make that true. And, I think we have legacies of racism to undo, but overall, we have collections and services built to serve everybody in the community. And so when you cut funding for that, you're cutting funding for everyone.
Do you feel like this is a movement in the country right now?
Yes, definitely. It's a concerted movement. I think it's very organized. I think We have a lot of evidence that these are not one-off parent complaints or singular pieces of legislation. But you look at what's happening in Idaho and Tennessee, and even in the state of New York, we're facing issues like this, and really incredible upticks in book challenges. And all of us are sort of facing those kinds of challenges. And it definitely seems, and they're just too similar from place to place for me to think that they're not as kind of organized. And we need to be as organized as they are as we push back.
I know you kind of touched on this, but if you were back home here in Idaho and saw this happening this last couple of months, what would you have to say about it?
This isn't the Idaho I grew up in. This isn't the community that I know that Idaho can be. This is not the kind of close-knit and supportive community that I grew up in, going to Madison Elementary and then North Junior High and Boise High, and spending my time on the high school debate team at the Boise State Library, being so cool because I could use this big university library. I mean, I have so many warm memories of Idaho, and a lot of them revolve around the library. And so to see people coming, I think, with agendas that are far to the outside of what most ordinary Idahoans think is appropriate, right? I think seeing those kinds of attacks that undermine the connections that we have with one another, it's really devastating. And I think if I was in Idaho, I'd be doing what I know a lot of the Idaho librarians are doing right now, and library workers, and that is sort of standing together and trying to figure out a way forward through these kinds of attacks.
And Emily said that's going to be her focus when she actually takes office a year from now. Emily said if there's a big library agenda at all, it's to support the First Amendment, the right to read, and the right to express ourselves. Those kind of profession-wide commitments. Emily's tenure, like I said, won't start until July 2023. So for the next year, she's president-elect. She's going to be learning how to do the job and continuing her support of local libraries.